This is the third part of Chapter 11, Right Mindfulness, taken from the Heart of the Buddha's Teaching. Where we left off in the last chapter was there are 51 kinds of mental formations, so there are 51 kinds of objects of mind. We'll continue from that point. When we are attentive to a bird singing, the sound is the object of our mind. When our eyes see the blue sky, this is the object of our mind. When we look at a candle, an idea or image of the candle arises in our mind. That object of perception is a sign, and in brackets it says lakshana. In Chinese, the character for perception is composed of the ideograms for sign and mind. A perception is a sign, an image in our mind. Investigation of dharmas. In brackets it says dharma pravichaya is one of the 7 factors of awakening, bodhiyanga. And there's a footnote that goes with that word. Bodhiyanga, the 7 factors of awakening are mindfulness, investigation of phenomena, diligence, joy, ease, concentration, and letting go. We'll return to the paragraph. When observing dharmas, 5 kinds of meditation can help us calm our minds. 1. Counting the breath. 2. Observing interdependent arising. 3. Observing impurity. 4. Observing with love and compassion. And there's a footnote that goes with that. It says, the Pure Land School replaces this meditation with contemplating Amida Buddha. In fact, when we contemplate Amida Buddha, we are observing with love and compassion, because any Buddha is an embodiment of love and compassion. What does Bodhinusmrita, mindfulness of Buddha, mean? What does it mean to recite the name of the Buddha? It means to invite someone precious to come into our living room. Every moment that the Buddha seed is in our mind consciousness, it plants seeds of love and understanding. If we invite Mara in, it will not plant those seeds. Mindfulness means, above all, remembering the Buddha nature that is in us. We return to the paragraph. There was a 5th observation, and that is 5, observing the different realms. What are the different realms? First, there are the 18 elements, dhatus, and these are eyes, forms, which are the objects of our vision, and the consciousness that makes sight possible, which we can call eye consciousness. There's ears, sound, and the consciousness connected with hearing. There's nose, smell, and the consciousness connected with smelling. Tongue, taste, and the consciousness connected with tasting. There's body, touch, and the consciousness connected with touching. There's mind, the object of mind, and mind consciousness. These 18 elements make the existence of the universe possible. If we look deeply into the 18 elements and see their substance and their source, we will be able to go beyond ignorance and fears. In the Discourse on the Many Realms, the Buddha taught all that our anxieties and difficulties come from our inability to see the true face or the true sign of things, which means that although we see their appearance, we fail to recognize their impermanent and interbeing nature. If we are afraid or insecure, at the root of our fear or insecurity is that which we have not yet seen the true face of all dharmas. If we investigate and look deeply into the 18 elements, we can transform our ignorance and overcome fear and insecurity. One day, during sitting meditation, the Venerable Ananda realized that all anxieties, fears, and misfortunes arise because we do not understand the true nature of physical and psychological phenomena. Later, he asked the Buddha if this was correct, and the Buddha said yes, first explaining the need to penetrate the 18 elements. Ananda then asked, "Is it possible to penetrate the 18 elements in another way?" And the Buddha replied, "Yes. We can say that there are 6 elements. There are the 4 great elements, Mahabhutva, of earth, water, fire, and air, plus space and consciousness. All physical phenomena are made up of these 6 elements. If we observe these 6 elements inside us and around us, we see that we are not separate from the universe. This insight frees us from the idea of birth and death." The Buddha then taught Ananda the 6 realms: happiness, sukha; suffering, dukkha; joy, mudita; anxiety, in Pali it's dhammanasa; letting go, upeksha; and ignorance, avidya. Happiness can be true happiness or deception, so we have to look into its substance and go beyond attachment. True happiness will be the benefit and nourish ourselves and others. Deceptive happiness brings temporary pleasure and helps us forget our suffering, but it is not of lasting benefit and can actually be harmful. Like a cigarette or a glass of wine. When something causes us to suffer, we look deeply into it. We may see that it is exactly what we need to restore our happiness. In fact, suffering is essential for happiness. We have to know the suffering of being too cold to enjoy and appreciate being warm. If we look deeply into the realm of joy, we can see whether it is authentic or whether it is just covering up our suffering and anxiety. Anxiety, the illness of our time, comes primarily from our inability to dwell in the present moment. Letting go is an ongoing practice. One can bring us a lot of happiness. It's one that can bring us a lot of happiness. When a Vietnamese woman who escaped her country by boat was robbed on the high seas of all her gold, she was so distraught that she contemplated suicide. But on shore, she met a man who had been robbed of even his clothes, and it helped her very much to see him smiling. He had truly let go. Letting go gives us freedom, and freedom is the only condition for happiness. If in our heart we still cling to anything, anger, anxiety, possessions, we cannot be free. The Buddha taught another list of 6 realms: craving, freedom from craving, nekama, anger, vyapada, absence of anger, avyapada, harming, vihimsa, and non-harming, avahimsa, or ahimsa. If we look deeply into our craving, we see that we already have what we crave, because everything is already a part of everything else. This insight can take us from the realm of craving into the realm of freedom. The fire of anger burns in us day and night and causes us to suffer, even more than one at whom we are angry. When anger is absent, we feel light and free. To live in the realm of non-harming is to love. Our world is full of hatred and violence because we do not take the time to nourish the love and compassion that are already in our hearts. Non-harming is an important practice. There are 3 further realms: the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm. The form and formless realms describe certain states of meditative concentration. In the form realm, material things are somewhat subtle. In the formless realm, they are very subtle. In the desire realm, material things are present in their grossest form, and human beings do not meditate there. These 3 realms are produced by our mind. If our mind has craving, anger, and harming, we are like a house on fire. If craving, anger, and harming are absent from our minds, we produce a cool, clear lotus lake. Here's a little footnote on that also, Lotus Lake. In the Universal Door chapter of the Lotus Sutra, it is said that the mindfulness of the Bodhisattva of compassion can transform the fires that are about to burn us into a cool, clear lotus lake. So it's a conversion. Every time we practice right mindfulness, it is like jumping into that cool lake. We are standing. We only have to know that we are standing. If we are sitting, we only have to know we are sitting. We don't have to add or take away anything. We only need to be aware. Finally, the Buddha taught us the meditation on 2 realms: the realm of the conditioned, samskrita, and the realm of the unconditioned, asamskrita. In the conditioned realm, there is birth, death, before, after, inner, outer, small, and large. In the world of the unconditioned, we are no longer subject to birth and death, coming or going, before or after. The conditioned realm belongs to the historical dimension. It is the wave. The unconditioned realm belongs to the ultimate dimension. It is the water. These 2 realms are not separate. To arrive at liberation from narrow views and to obtain fearlessness and great compassion, practice the contemplations on interdependence, impermanence, and compassion. Sitting in meditation, direct your concentration onto the interdependent nature of certain objects. Remember that the subject of knowledge cannot exist independently from the object of knowledge. To see is to see something. To hear is to hear something. To be angry is to be angry about something. Hope is hope for something. Thinking is thinking about something. When the object of knowledge is not present, there can be no subject. Meditate and see the interbeing of the subject and the object. When you practice mindfulness of breathing, then the breathing is mind. When you practice mindfulness of the body, then your body is mind. When you practice mindfulness of objects outside yourself, these objects are mind. Therefore, the contemplation of the interbeing of subject and object is also the contemplation of the mind. Every object of the mind is itself mind. In Buddhism, we call the objects of mind the dharmas. Contemplation on interdependence is a deep looking into all dharmas in order to pierce through their real nature, in order to see them as part of the great body of reality, and in order to see that the great body of reality is indivisible. It cannot be cut into pieces with separate existences of their own. The object of our mind can be a mountain, a rose, the full moon, or the person standing in front of us. We believe these things exist outside of us as separate entities, but these objects of our perception are in us. This includes our feeling. When we hate someone, we also hate ourselves. The object of our mindfulness is actually the whole cosmos. Mindfulness is mindfulness of the body, feelings, perceptions, any of the mental formations, and all of the seeds in our consciousness. The four establishments of mindfulness contain everything in the cosmos. Everything in the cosmos is the object of our perception, and as such, does not exist only outside of us, but also within us. If we look deeply at the bud on the tree, we will see its nature. It may be very small, but it is also like the earth because the leaf in the bud will become part of the earth. If we see the truth of one thing in the cosmos, we see the nature of the cosmos. Because of our mindfulness, our deep looking, the nature of the cosmos will reveal itself. It is not a matter of imposing our ideas on the nature of the cosmos. The chapter continues on for just a few paragraphs with a slightly different thought train, but we'll finish it here. Sitting and watching our breath is a wonderful practice, but it is not enough. For transformation to take place, we have to practice mindfulness all day long, not just on our meditation cushion. Mindfulness is the Buddha. Just as vegetation is sensitive to sunlight, mental formations are sensitive to mindfulness. Mindfulness is the energy that can embrace and transform all mental formation. Mindfulness helps us leave behind upside-down perceptions and wakes us up to what is happening. When Tish Kwang Duk made himself into a human torch. All people all over the world had to recognize that Vietnam was a land on fire, and they had to do something about it. When we practice mindfulness, we are in contact with life, and we can offer our love and compassion to lessen the suffering and bring about joy and happiness. Do not lose yourself in the past. Do not lose yourself in the future. Do not get caught in your anger, worries, or fears. Come back to the present moment and touch life deeply. This is mindfulness. We cannot be mindful of everything at the same time, so we have to choose what we find most interesting to be the object of our mindfulness. The blue sky is wonderful, but the beautiful face of a child is also wonderful. What is essential to be alive and present to all the wonders of life that are available? In many talks, the Buddha spoke about the threefold training of precepts, concentration, and insight. The practice of the precepts, Shila, is the practice of right mindfulness. If we don't practice the precepts, we aren't practicing mindfulness. I know some Zen students who think that they can practice meditation without practicing precepts, but that is not correct. The heart of Buddhist meditation is the practice of mindfulness, and mindfulness is the practice of the precepts. You cannot meditate without practicing the precepts. When we practice mindfulness, we generate the energy of the Buddha within us and around us, and this is the energy that can save the world. The Buddha is someone who is mindful all day long. We are only part-time Buddhists. We breathe in and use our Buddha eyes to see with the energy of mindfulness. When we listen with our Buddha ears, we are able to restore communication and relieve a lot of suffering. When we put the energy of mindfulness into our hands, our Buddha hands will protect the safety and integrity of those we love. Look deeply into your hand and see if the Buddha eye is in it. In Tibetan, Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, and Japanese temples, there is a bodhisattva with 1,000 arms. It takes that many arms to help others. And in the palm of each hand, there is an eye. The hand represents action, and the eye represents insight and understanding. Without understanding, our actions might cause others to suffer. We may be motivated by the desire to make others happy, but if we do not have understanding, the more we do, the more trouble we may create. Unless our love is made of understanding, it is not true love. Mindfulness is the energy that brings the eyes of a Buddha into our hands. With mindfulness, we can change the world and bring happiness to many people. This is not abstract. It is possible for every one of us to generate the energy of mindfulness in each moment of our daily life. And that is the end of chapter 11.